Start recording. All right, so today's session would be for the next topic, which is writing test. Obviously, we did the writing test last time, including installation. That was just a demo to get you more interested, also get you ready for today's class. So let's talk about writing tests today. When we write a test, and I'm not talking about recording, right? There is a format that you would have to follow. Like, for example, you see the name of the file. So this is, in this case, it says TS for TypeScript, but we are doing JavaScript. So we're going to change that. Let me see if I can change that here. TypeScript, where is there should be an option somewhere here to change to JavaScript. Okay, but TypeScript and JavaScript are very, very similar. So anytime you see TS, that should be JS, okay? Unless you're using TypeScript. So now you see that the naming of the file spec.ts. If you're not putting spec.ts, right, your Playwright doesn't know if that is a test or not. So it's not going to run. Even if you try to run it, it doesn't know that. And then in the beginning, when you created your folder, so remember you actually answered 3 questions in the beginning right here. Okay. Before you created the framework, you actually chose a folder. So if you chose test, that's your folder. And if you chose E2E, that's going to be a folder. So in my case, if I go back to my VS Code, I chose the default name, which is the test. Okay. Now these tests, if you go to the playwright.config, and you'll see that it has the directory. So Playwright knows exactly where the test is because of this. Okay. Now, for any reason, your manager says, okay, let's just change this to company specific, right? So if you work for T-Mobile, you can choose T-Mobile, whatever test, right? That means you have to also update this configuration in this file right here. And then we're going to go a lot more in the configuration soon because you can do a lot more than just writing tests and running tests because Playwright will allow you to configure, your test to be doing multiple things. For example, if you don't want to run parallel, you can turn this off, right? You can actually say false. If you try to run it on a mobile device, you have to enable those, right? So you can just basically enable those and say, I want to run it on Chrome, mobile Chrome for Pixel 5, iPhone 12. So you have a lot more options here in the configuration. And then you have this link right here that actually gives you documentation on what can you add, right? Or how can you make your framework more powerful, okay? So that's what the configuration file is for. So just keep that in mind. All of your tests has to be inside of test folder, which is here. And then all the test file, this is a folder, this is a file. So all of the test file has to finish with spec.js at the end. So you can name your test file relative to what you're trying to do. So for example, in my case, I'm testing contact us page. And so that's why I named my test file relative to that, right? So you can name it with camel casing. Who here doesn't know what camel casing is? Especially for like, JavaScript, you would be doing camel casing. Anybody know what camel casing means?
When you have
where you're using lowercase and uppercase letters.
Right. So camel casing basically, I'm just going to use this as right here as a comment. Okay. Is that whenever you name something, the first letter is going to be lowercase. Okay, so it's going to be, let's say, this is lowercase, and then I'm going to say this. Let's say it's a homepage testing. So home is lowercase, page, and then page T is going to be uppercase. It's a separate word, right? So every word after that is going to be uppercase. The first word is going to be lowercase, and every word after that is going to be uppercase. And that's how it's going to be. By the way, the reason why it's typing automatically because there is an AI added to VS Code, which you can probably add to your VS Code too. We'll also talk about some plugins that you can add to make your life much, much easier. Playwright has plugins VS Code plugin, which helps you run the test directly from the script, not writing any command. So we can also show you at the end. Now, the important part of test automation, if we go to the writing of the test, today you'll be learning how to write your first test, perform actions, assertions, what's that mean, how to isolate test cases, and how to use test hooks. Okay, and many of you guys probably take advantage of hooks when you have multiple, doing the same thing again and again for each test. So we'll explain that as well. This is how your first test should look like. This is an example test which already in your repository, if you did that. Now you can see you're importing Playwright, right? It's coming from somewhere. Can anybody tell me where this is coming from? This thing? Because when you say page.goto, how does it know goto means? What does goto means, right? So you're saying it means in this folder somewhere. This guy actually is inside of your node module. So if you go inside of node module, you'll see there is somewhere as a Playwright, and it has a lot of Playwright related folder. So all the functions that you're using from Playwright, for example, get by role, go to, expect, locators, all these functions right here, these are functions, okay? Functions belongs to somewhere here. And the way you call them is by making sure that you have import somewhere before you're writing the test, okay? So that's how the test knows that you have this. Now, with that said, how do you know what's a function? When can you identify if it's a function or not? No matter where you're looking. Who can tell me? First of all, what is function and how can you identify a function? Nobody?
A function would be like a block of code that performs a specific task.
Right. It does something for you, right? But it takes something to give you something, right? You have to ask for it. So the function looks like this. The easiest way to identify a function is that whenever you have some sort of word and it ends with this, okay? It ends with a parenthesis, okay? Now, inside a parenthesis, sometime it may take arguments, okay? And if it does take arguments, that's still a function, but it is more dynamic function. It takes something to give you something, okay? So for example, you have goto, which is a function. Notice goto has open parentheses and close parentheses. And then if you hover over goto, it tells you what it can do, okay? It tells you what else it can do, okay? So each one of them will give you more description. And the reason why you're getting the description is because VS Code is helping you to say, okay, this is a function I can recognize, and what this function do is this, okay? So notice like goto, we have the URL that we're going to, but then it can do a lot more than that. By the way, function method is the same, okay? So this is a method. Method means function, and function means method. I mean, however you want to understand. Many programming languages call method. And then if you're using C, C++, languages that are earlier than Java, JavaScript, then it will be called function. So, but they're same. So now you can see this method right here. So okay, for the remainder of the class, if I say method, that just remember it's a function. It's designed to do something. All you have to do is call the function, okay? And it will do something for you. It has a lot more code behind it. So no, if you want to look what the function looks like, you can actually go inside of it, okay? And you can see goto function has code, okay? All this code belongs to just goto, right? So the function actually, somebody had to write the function, okay? So those functions are written by Microsoft team, and they created Playwright for you, which we already have it inside of Node.js. All we have to learn is how to use those functions to write our automated tests. When you record your test cases, which you did yesterday or today, and those recording happening based on the function. It's basically when you record, it knows what function to use. But for us, we're just getting started with Playwright. We don't know what each function do. So today we're going to get more familiar with the function and how to write the code ourselves rather than recording. And then we'll probably record also to make sure that we kind of solidify our knowledge on recording a test case. But we all will also focus on learning how to write the test on our own without having to use the recording. So this is just an structure of the test case. Notice a JS file will have to have import, and then each time you write a new test case, it has to start with test, and then it has to have a title, right? And then whatever test steps you have, it has to be inside of it. And then if you have a second test case, it's going to start with test, and then you're going to be putting all the code related to test, and that's it. Okay. So what I explained, again, go to is just a function that takes an URL to just bring you to that, you know, to that URL, to that website, right? So it'll just take you there. So no matter what URL you're saying, it will just take you there, okay? Now, let's look at the interaction. And let's also talk about the action classes, right? So there are some actions that you can do. So what I want you to realize, and I'm going to ask you guys some questions before even getting to that point. In a website, if we are automating test cases and we try to be mimicking human as possible, right? So let's say I'm going to go into my sample website, which is demo. Flight reservation. Hopefully I find that. So maybe demo insurance. Okay. So now you're in this website. Okay. And if you are automating it, right? And let's say as a human, when you're actually using it, you're the real user. Who's the real user of this application is a human, right? So now, whatever you can do as a human, the automation Playwright should be able to do the same. That's how the Playwright was created, right? It's mimicking human from the browser. It doesn't go behind the code and look into things and do anything, right? And that's why it's language independent. It doesn't need to make, follow the exact language that it's built with. Now, let's say there is something that you cannot do. Let's say there's a bug, right? Let's say, for example, contact us button does not work. You as a human, okay? And so that means the Playwright, because it's mimicking human, it also will stay the same. That means it's also not going to work for Playwright. So when the Playwright clicks on it, it doesn't go there and it gives you an error. What do you do next? In your case, what will you do?
Report a bug.
But how do you report a bug? Do you just right away, okay, Playwright found this, I'm going to report a bug, or do you?
So I need to
Don't you
retest
wanna-
again and again in our
Right.
server.
Yeah, so not again and again. You can reproduce, like you can give yourself the retry just to make sure you don't feel embarrassed when the developers come and said, "Oh, it's working." You just your browser is not probably proper, whatever is the case, right? So you want to make sure that not only it's not working for you, but also it's not working for the right browser, whatever is the case. Because when you report a bug, the developer is going to ask you, "Okay, is it not working only for Chrome?" Then you're going to say, "I don't know. I only tested in Chrome." That doesn't sound like a tester, does it? So now if it comes back and you said, "Oh yeah, I tested in Chrome, Safari, and looks like it doesn't work on all three." Okay, then he's gonna say, "Oh, did you try removing cache and cookie?" And you're gonna say, "I don't know. I only tested it this way." Then he's gonna say, "Okay, try it now. Try it with this." So who's more like, you know what I'm saying? So he's gonna ask you to do regardless. So why not do it ahead of time when he comes back and you're gonna say, "Well, I tried pretty much everything, and this button is not responsive." And so that's why I locked the bug. So that'll be less interaction between you and the developer and less embarrassment, because one of the embarrassing thing I feel as a tester is that when you find a bug and you're excited and you're like, "Oh, got you," right? And then they come back and say, "No, got you back because this is not an issue," right? That's kind of embarrassing, at least to me, because I did all this work and anybody can easily ask you like, "Oh man, you just wasted like half an hour and also my time. You could have just do this." right? So that's why we always double, triple check before even, log in the bug. But also don't take like so much time where developers already push the code in production and 2 months later, you're like, oh yeah, I noticed this, but I don't know. I wasn't sure, right? If you're not sure, it's a bug, period. Anything that you're not sure about, it's a bug until they tell you it's not. All right, so let me go back. So everybody is clear on how the test structure looks like. You have to have a file, right? With this specific name. You can change the example to whatever name it's, that should be for your test. And then you would be editing your test this way. And then you got yourself go-to method right here. Now, the way that the recording is happening, right? Like, for example, I'm going to give you some interaction example with my code that I have, so you guys can get some hands-on. So we're going to create some variables to make our life much easier, right? So like one of the principles that you want to keep in mind, I guess rules of thumb is that if you're using a piece of code in more than one place, that should be a method or that should be a variable, okay? And if it's a variable, that means you can call it. Okay, so what is a variable in programming? Let's Google that because I want people to understand, because this is going to be a first programming thing to learn. In programming, what is a variable? And the reason why I said in programming rather than saying in JavaScript is because no matter what programming language you will use in the future or you used, a variable will be there. Okay, variable is needed for you to be able to write code that are more efficient and create more logics. So in computer program, a variable is a abstract storage location pair with an associated symbolic name, which contains some known or unknown quality of data, right? In a simple sense, this is coming from Wikipedia, but in my view, a variable is just a container that contains information that you would use later on, right? You're just temporarily holding a value, so you can use that later on when you are, when you need it, right? Any questions about variable? Everybody's okay before we move on? Okay, so in JavaScript, when we create variables, I'm going to show you, there is many ways to do it. There is it's different data types that you can do it. So right now, let's say I would like to create a variable of this URL. So I can call it here, okay? I can put it outside if I want to, because if I have test cases that uses this URL again and again, I can basically call the name if I want to, right? So like, for example, I'm going to say const, and I'm going to probably use the latest version of JavaScript. So that way, you don't have to worry about learning the latest. We're only going to do the latest anyways. So now let's say we're creating the URL. And by the way, when you are in real environment, you'll probably have only one URL to test anyways, right? You're only testing one application. So it's always going to be the same URL. And we call that base URL. The only thing is going to be different is maybe like environment. So sometime it'll be like queue environment with a different URL, staging environment with a different URL, and every URL has a purpose. Queue environment for QA testing, dev environment for developers, they do their own testing, and then we have staging environment where business people, they go and do their own testing. So you see, if you mess up, somebody's going to catch your mess up, and you're going to be embarrassed. So const, let's say I'm going to name base URL camel casing is equal to, okay, it's autofilling it for me, but let's look at that. So now this is a const variable. That means this variable should not change. If you try to reassign a value to this variable, it will not do it because it's a constant variable. It is, once this a value is assigned, it never changes. Okay. There are other variables where you can change values as you go, and there is a different use case for those. But in this case, now we have this variable. That means I can call this wherever I want, right? Within this entire class. So now I will copy this. Okay, I'm going to call it here. Now, who here can tell me if I want to call this variable, do I need code or do I not need code? Do I need a quotation, single quote, double quote? Which one do I need? Double quote or single quote, guys?
Double.
Farah. You said, okay, you said double, okay. Anybody else? Single, okay, I'm giving us 3 choices. Double quote, single quote, or no quote?
Or maybe no quote.
Okay,
Single.
why? Okay. Guys, give me some reasons, because when you tell me whatever, you know, I don't know what's going on in your understanding, right? So at least I can. Why is no quote and why is single? I understand when you say single because everything else is single, right? So you're going more on the
Because when
uniform
we
side.
put in a variable name, so
Mhm.
if we call the variable name, that's good enough to run the test.
Right. So like when you, the whole purpose of you creating a variable, because you're telling your program, hey, this is the name, and this name will contain these pieces of information. Can you give me that information when I call this name? Now, if you call this name here with a single quote, okay, like for example, this URL, it doesn't recognize, you see, it's not used because this becomes a string. In programming, whenever you put anything inside of a code, it becomes a string. That means it will not look for a value ever. It will use it exactly as is, whatever you give them. Okay. Now you know what the string is, right? A string is something that has code. Okay, started with a code and ends with code. That's it. You can have a paragraph, you can have one word, you can have single letter, you can have anything, okay, as a string. Now, you create a variable, the program already knows the name and it contains some value for you. So the moment you call the name, it will give you this in return. Okay, so now your test is going to use this base URL. Okay, so let's look at another example. Let's say this whole thing right here, you want to create a variable. So for example, this is right here. So let's go ahead and do const. I'm going to give it a nice name. So this is looking for scroll body, right? Body of the page, right? So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Control C. Oh, sorry, Command C. And you guys have to learn a lot of shortcuts to be a good, efficient programmer. So, what am I doing? Let's go ahead and copy this. And then I'm going to give it a name. Okay, so this one may be like scroll body. Okay. And then that's it. So you see, this is the name. I got the same exact pieces of code. Okay. So now all I have to do is call it. This is the same exact piece of code. I don't need to write it again. All I have to do is say scroll body as a variable, and this code will be called here. Okay. And now you may ask, like, okay, well, that's not a bright idea because, I could have just put it in here. It's going to be a single line. And now you made 2 lines. Okay. And you'd be right. You'd be right about that. But when do we create variables like this? Is when you're using this thing multiple locations. So for example, expect this to have this text, right? Now I'm going to go ahead and use this again, another, so I'm going to copy this variable and I'm going to say, I'm going to say something like this dot, maybe in this case, wait for, right? Wait for is a function that will wait for that specific, element. Okay, so this thing is gonna not only that is gonna go ahead and look for the text, but now it's gonna wait for it, right? So if for any reason it takes longer than usual time, it will actually wait for it before it will go and check for a value of this string. Okay. And now you're using this thing in more than one place. So it makes sense, right? So imagine you have 1,000 test cases. Imagine in this page specifically, you have 10 test cases. And you have a lot of these where you can actually call and then use reuse, right? So it just makes your code much more reusable and therefore it's maintainable. Okay, so you're not gonna understand when I say maintainable and reusable just yet. You're gonna understand when we write hundreds of test cases, which we will do. So the 10 test cases that you guys wrote, I would say good job. And then we're going to continue to write 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 until one day you come and say, look, I know everything from back of my head. Just keep in mind. So far, so good. Okay, so now let's go to the actions, right? We talked about, you see how it was done? Right here, create a locator. You first create the locator, and it's a locator type, and then you're basically just saying, okay, I want to just click on it because this is the same as this, okay? And notice it didn't put await in the front. Why do we put await? If we don't put await, it doesn't really, the program doesn't wait until this code to be finished. It just moves on to the next one. And that's when the issue comes, right? That's when the issue arises. So whenever you write a test case and if you don't see await and async, you better add those. Okay, that's one of the good thing about JavaScript. Okay, now let's go into locators and actions and all that stuff. So basic actions. Now, the question would be, again, let's go with you guys. Who should I ask? Okay, I'll ask Lahul because you worked for quite some time. Now, when you do testing, right, on a application, what are some things that you would have to do? What are some of the actions that you perform in order to complete your test case? Like, give me like what are the interaction that you do? Like, let's say you're in a website. What are a few things that you have to do in order to complete your test case? Okay.
Yeah.
What is your interaction to that?
So my interaction first, go to the, like you mean like what type button that what I click? Like I go to landing page
what type of elements?
and-
That's the types of elements, right? Or that you interact with.
Okay, yeah. Drop down, left sidebar, search bar.
Search bar is a text field, so I'm just gonna say text field, right? Because everything will be text field, just like search bar. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Button. There's some specific button
Buttons,
that
okay.
you have to click.
Okay, they're all falls under the same
Links.
category.
Links.
Okay.
Videos. There's some demo video to go to the.
Right, but then as a human, you can only see the video, right? You can interact with the video. Okay, so I'm looking for things that you can actually do things. Click on it or do something to it, and it does something for you.
Okay, you can write probably.
Writing in a text field covered.
Okay.
Maybe text area where we write paragraphs. That's another.
Text area where we actually put JSON's file there, and what else?
So you got the drop down, left sidebar, text field, text area, buttons, links, nothing else.
There's
How about
like
scrolling
more,
down? Sorry.
So you got the scroll bar. What else?
How about icon or images?
Okay.
Checkbox.
Radio buttons?
Radio. What else?
Drag and drop.
That's an action, but you do it in the element, right? So I think that's like I'll put it drag and drop. I'll put it.
Hyperlink? Like
Hyperlink
links?
is the link. Same thing.
Okay.
Capture text.
Capture text. So get text. That's like
Yeah.
that's an action, right? This is we're not gonna be able to get text. We can read text, right? So that's different. But like I'm looking for the element, right? Text could be read from links, buttons, all of these things, right? You can read text.
Highlighted text also the same thing. Highlighted
same
text.
thing. Yeah, it's part of the text. It could be text area, text field, or even like headers or something. So H1, H2, H3, whatever is the case. Okay. So now, if I tell you today these are the handful of lists that I can think of. I don't think there is much more, maybe one or two you're missing. Right, we just have to take a look here, what else you're missing. I don't think we are missing anything, but if I tell you to be an automation engineer, all you're doing is dealing with these guys and that's it. How would you feel? Do you feel like, okay, now that doesn't look like endless, list of things that I have to learn, right? That means all you have to do, maybe spend 10 to 15 minutes on how to deal with dropdown. All you have to do is spend 10 to 15 minutes on how to deal with text field, buttons, links, and all of that stuff, right? And that's it. And that's makes you a automation engineer. But then you get help, which is Playwright gives you recording, and it tells you how it's dealing with this. Like, for example, it's grabbing a text, or at least it's checking a text from H1, as you can see, and it's telling you this, right? You can just simply read and go through and say, okay, it's doing the right thing. So the idea is that just because it's recording it, it's not going to be accurate at all times. You're going to have to know what these are. And that's the goal of the day, right? We want to make sure that we can do this ourselves and not just, having the Playwright do it for us, right? So that's what we want to do. And I would also want to teach you how to basically locate this stuff yourself, without having to get the help from Playwright itself, right? Recording. And I'm not saying don't use the recording, but there will be times where you cannot use recording, right? There will be times we have difficult elements that you have to do it. Okay. Now, in order for you to deal with elements, so let's say I want to select an option from dropdown. What do I have to tell my Playwright to do? How do I tell the Playwright, hey, can you select the first option from the dropdown, right? And for all of these elements, right? Let's say what is the first thing that I need to do in order for me to interact with, for all of these, to do any sort of actions, which is right here. Not this, right? You have all this action where you can check, click, uncheck, hover, fill is for what? Dropdown. Focus, press, and set up input file, select options, which is for actually dropdown. Okay. So you have all these action methods that will work with you and do what you're asking. But what is the first thing that I will have to tell Playwright to do?
Check the inspect.
How do I get started? Say it again.
Check the inspect. Element.
Okay, well, I will check the inspect, but in a high level, tell me. You don't have to tell me exact, code. What is the first thing? And this is true for any automation tool that is out there in the world, right? What is the first thing that you would do in order to interact? Because as the automation engineer, all we do is interact with these elements, right? All of them, by the way, all of these guys, we're gonna from now on address them as element, okay? From today. Just keep that in mind. So these UI elements, if I was to, let's say, do anything with these guys, I would have to, and this is true for any automation tools, programming language, doesn't matter, right? The principle is same. The fundamental is going to be the same in order to interact with these guys, right? The first thing I have to say, locate, right? I have to locate the element. I have to basically find the location of the element. That's the first thing, okay? Otherwise, if you telling Playwright to do something, let's say, okay, click on this link, and you don't say the location, it doesn't know where to click, right? And that's the problem. You cannot just simply say, okay, just go and find the random link and click on it, right? You have to provide exact location. So that's the first thing that you have to make sure. You always provide the location of the link. So now, in order to provide the location of the links, what can we use, guys? What are some of the location of the link? And we call them, what do we call them? Location of the links. You already have a recording. You can look at it and tell me, what do you call them in Playwright? Every element, every one of
Get
them
element
has
by
location.
ID or?
No, I'm saying like, what do we call them as a whole, right? The location of these elements, wherever they are. I don't care.
Locator.
Locator. There we go. Okay. Locators. Now, give me a list of locators that you can use in order to interact with these guys, right? And who can tell me why do we need like more than one way to one locators or more than one way to find the locator for these elements? Who here can tell me that?
So it can
Jaidul, you wanna
be,
try? Go ahead, Hero.
I was gonna say, so it can be more specific.
Not just specific, but you know, like let's say you're going from LaGuardia to Manhattan and you said the only option you have today is taking a taxi. That's the only option you have. Okay. Now you come out of the airport and you find no taxi, but your only option is taxi. What happens?
Find out the unique locators. Or
No, but I'm talking about in general life, right? You are in LaGuardia right now, and somehow they said that you cannot take anything other than taxi, period. You cannot walk, you cannot take bus, you cannot take train, whatever is the case. You went outside, you found no taxi. What happened to you at this moment?
You can't make it?
You
Or
can
have to
make
walk?
it. So you can make it. So think like you're a QA engineer and they said, okay, this is the specific locator that you will use at all times. We're gonna all the time, we're gonna use the locators for all of these elements. There is gonna be locators and that's it. Now there will be times where there is no locator. There will be times where the locator is very difficult to find. And so what do? You just stop? You can't stop, you're an engineer, right? So for
Right.
that to never happen, I have to actually tell you that there is more than one way to find the locator. There's more than one way to locate an element on a web page. Okay. I'm gonna write them down, then I'm gonna show you guys exactly on the web page how to get those locators. Okay, so number one, who can tell me?
The XPath locator.
Okay, but the number one I would say in my view is ID. Okay, so
come to class.
where do we find ID? Let's just literally go in there and let's go to the website that we automated, right? So demo insurance website. The very first one, let's find an ID. Let's see. Okay, I'm just gonna go get a code. It'd be easier. So we're in this website. I'm gonna go ahead and inspect, okay? How many people here just discover there is something called inspect here? Right, you have page source and you have inspect. We don't care about the page source yet, okay? We go to inspect. Okay, if you never knew this, now you know. You right click on any browser, you should be able to see inspect, okay? If you don't see it, that means it's not configured properly. Your browser, you have to enable that, especially Safari. You have to enable the developer tool in order for you to see the inspect. So now that you see, you can actually inspect, the first thing you land is elements. You see, look, now we can see, wow, okay, all these elements. And you can finally start seeing IDs and stuff, right? But then you want a very specific one. You want a specific ID. You want an ID of this text field, okay? Now, this is a label of the text field and this is the text field itself. So you shouldn't be caring about the label. We don't care about the labels. I mean, you can check that label. You can verify the label has the right text. But in order for us to interact with this field and type something on it, we have to find the locator. So the first item that we said is the ID, okay? So I will go ahead and find the ID of this. And now I found it. It says ID is equal to F name for the first one, okay? So that's the ID that I can use in order to write something on it, right? So now for Playwright, what we're gonna do is something like this, await page dot locator, and Playwright is so intelligent that you don't even have to say this is an ID, okay? All you have to do is that if it's an ID, you put a hashtag in front of it, because it by default works with CSS locator. So you can just put F name and that's it, and it will work, right? So at this moment, this locator is located. After this locator is located, what can you do to a text field? This is a text field. So as a human, on your manual testing, what can you do to a text field after you locate it? What should you do, right? It's not just I'll just do anything. You have to be realistic, right? What can you do as a human when you come to this site to the text field? Then I'll tell you how to deal with the ID.
Feel it?
We should be able to input a value like a name.
Okay. Okay, so if you input a value, then you're gonna use a function called fill, okay? And the fill function takes a argument, which is inside, and that argument will be whatever you want to type. Okay, so you can say you want to put like John as the first name because that's the first name, and that's it, done. You have effectively typed a input to this specific locator. Okay, this is you can call it locator at this moment, or you can call it element. Element is actually by itself, but the locator is this one. Okay, so now you used effectively IDs. So any IDs you can put a hashtag, it will work. Now I want to show you how do you test this ID, because sometimes even ID are not usable because the ID has maybe something unique, something, or maybe it has more than one. So what you're gonna do here, you're gonna click on it and you're gonna do command find, okay, control find, or if you're a Mac user, command find, and it will open up something like this. Here you're supposed to test your locator. This is your locator that you should be testing, okay, to make sure it works before you put it into your code. You don't want to be going back and forth and spend your time for no reason. So if I paste this hashtag fname and click enter, and I see this is 1 of 1, and if I just go ahead and enter it, I see this is highlighted and it's the right element. Only then I know that my code will work. Okay. Now, if let's say if we are dealing with an element, for example, this is a drop down, and we try to do fill, will it work?
No.
No, right? Because you as a human cannot just go ahead and fill the information up, right? Because if you can do it as a human, the automation will not be able to do it. Can you do it the other ways? There are other ways programmatically you can actually change stuff, but we're not doing that. We're only mimicking human, so that way it serves its purpose. The application is going to be used by human, so therefore we want to mimic human. Whatever they can do, we want to do with our automated test. Okay. Any questions about ID, guys? Before we move on to the next one, I gave you an example. We're going to move on to the next one. Okay.
Jewel, does fill always mean input? Like when we're
That's it,
typing
yeah.
or texting? Okay.
That's it, yeah. So you're using Playwright. Now you can put fill on your notepad and say, okay, that means typing, and you're good to go. You don't have to go and get a notepad. Why don't you just, why don't you just have this website handy? And at work, if you open this website, they cannot say anything because this is the source of everything. This is the source of truth. This is where things change and they update this. So you have to use this document regardless. And so fill right here, fill form field input text. That means anything that takes a text, right? Text area, text field, anything that you can enter text, it will be able to enter. Okay. So this is the action. Fill is actually the action method. Locator that it says, this is the whole locator. So you know exactly where you're entering information. Got it? Any questions? Okay, so let's move on because there's a much more actions that you can do. So we'll talk about all this action and then we can write some tests on our own, and then we'll write some tests using recording. And then that should give you guys a lot more clarity than the last class. Therefore, I'm going to expect you guys to do much more homework than the last class. So just
Joe, can you
let's keep
give
it
like
going.
another short example of ID?
Oh yeah, for sure. So first let's say, okay, so we're gonna go one by one. We got the ID already. So if you want another one, let's go ahead and find the email address. Okay, so if you look, you click on this locator right here, and if you select the element, you can already see at the top where it says input with the hashtag email, right? So, and if you just take this actually, like if you go ahead and if you just take the locator input hashtag email, it will still work. That's a locator effectively. But if you want to create your own locator, you see the ID right there. All you need is the hashtag at the beginning of that because it's an ID, right? So you put an hashtag, okay? And now if you just do enter, you can see this is the only one is found. This is 1 of 1. You just made sure that you're not finding more than one. That's when it's not gonna work because it doesn't know which one you want. It has to be 1 of 1 for it to work. Unless specifically you're dealing with more than one element. We'll talk about it. We'll actually show you. But for now, 1 of 1, and you make sure that this is the right one being highlighted when you select. That is the ID that you'll use. Okay. What is the next thing? What is the next thing, guys? You already seen it. I'm not even gonna like. If you look at it, you'll already see what is the next
I said class.
locator that you can use. Huh?
Class.
Class name, but like let's go in the same order, right? But the next one is, I would say, name, right? So you can see that an element, you see input, which is always, you'll see like a text field will always have the tag input. This is the tag, okay, in the HTML. And then you can see the type is text. And then you see name, it has a name, which is email. It has an ID, which is the same thing, email. So in this case, not only that you can use the name, you can also use the ID, whichever you would like, you know, but maybe name is not going to be unique. You're looking for a unique one. So we don't know that yet until we actually go ahead and test it here. So whenever you see that, by the way, the name, you see there is no quotation, but then email, there is a quotation. What that means is that email is the value and name is known, meaning it already knows what name means here, right? This is coded here. So name is the attribute and email is the value to that attribute. Okay, so you always have to reference what you're saying. You cannot just simply take the email and say, okay, it will work. Okay, so now what I will do, I'll copy this. Okay, I'm going to copy the whole thing and I'm going to test it here. In order for me to test this, I'll put name and the name in its value, just like this. As you can see, it's working. Okay, but on Playwright, if I say something like this, find by name. Oh, I went too far. Okay, let's see name. It should have browser type, frame, no. That's ID, name method. Okay, maybe name locator. Have attribute. We got the classes. Okay, let's look at our code a little bit. So we got the locator, get by role, just like that. It will be something like this. So for example, we put the hashtag here. Actually, you can also say something like this, page.getById, okay? And then you can also use, because that's another method, and you can do the same action that you would like to do, okay? For name, it will be like this, await page.getBy, get by name. Okay, in this case, you will be able to enter what is the name, which is email. And then you would be able to say, you know, fill, right? Because why can you say fill again here? Why is this is same as the other one? Why can you fill it, basically?
Because you can write in it.
If you are a human being and you're writing it, that means that's what we want to do, right? We want to make the human. So fill works for any text field. It doesn't have to be like, oh, this is email because this is a different text field. Anytime you see something where you can actually type, it's a text field, that's it. To us, it's a text field, nothing, it has nothing else. We don't really care what kind of text field that is. It's a text field, we can use the fill method, okay? So I'm gonna say email, whatever, .com, whatever is the email that you have. The next one is the class, okay? You can use class name as well. And we have to find something that has a class on it. So let's see, this one doesn't have it. I'm gonna go ahead and find the dropdown. This one doesn't have a class, but this one does, okay? So this label has a class and it's called this. I just wanna make sure that this class is unique. I'm gonna take the class name I'm gonna copy that and I'm gonna go ahead and paste it here. So anytime you have a class, you can put a dot front of it to simplify, and that becomes a class. So notice this one has more than one. All of these labels has the same name, class name, basically. All of these labels are effectively the same class name. So now in this case, I have to find the way to make sure that it is different than the other class. So now, even if I use the browser, I can right click right here and I can say copy. Okay, and I can say I want the selector right here, or I wanted the expat, it will give it to me. Okay. So if you feel like you don't know how to do this on your own, you can also have browser tell you how to find these. And not only that, and that's the case. I mean, obviously, this is the options that you're getting as an extra help, but Playwright can do all of these on his own, right? You're just basically knowing what they are at this moment, right? So my suggestion would be, because Playwright actually recently came out and said this, is that they prefer people to use locator more, right? Locator class more than using, for example, get by role and things like that. They prefer you to use locator and then specifically say this is email is a, let's say, name is equal to this. Basically, so they prefer this way because the reliability is more than just doing the way that they have, like right here. Okay, get by is another class which you would be able to use. As you can see, get by alert dialog, get by article, get by banner. So you see all these options that you can do with your get bys. Okay. So you got the class name. It's going to be very much same thing. Await page dot locator. Again, a class name. Remember, if you put a dot front of it on the front of the name of the class, you would be able to select anything that has the same name, the same class name. So let me just inspect this real quick. Let me find some sort of class. It doesn't have a banner title. So this one should be at least one. Control C, banner title. I'm going to go ahead and find. Okay. Let me copy this. Control C, Control find. Okay, so 1 of 1. So that's good. That means we can use. This is 1 of 1. Notice like I put a dot front of it, but when you highlight this, it gives you a locator at the top. You can see deep.banner. That may be even better choice because it has more than just one identification. It tells you that, okay, it's going to be a div, but then it will have a class name banner title. So you would be able to just use exactly what you're seeing on the screen on the top, right? Or you can use this simplified, and you can say, now you can say you want to do something. So let's say, what can you do as a human? Because this can we fill in? Can we type? Can we click? What is this that we have to do as an action? In this case. So if I go to Playwright, let me see. I'm going to show you guys the action classes. What are some of the actions that we should do or can do, right? So I'm going to go into this real quick. These are all the actions that we have listed. Okay, we have all these actions. What are some of the actions that we can perform here?
Focus.
Okay, well, that's fine. That's valid. What else? Okay, let me ask you guys. Can I do the fill action here? If you say no, I want to know why. If you say yes, I want to know why.
I don't think you could fill in because it doesn't really have a text field where you could place a value into it. So I mean that's
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a reasonable answer. And okay, so that's good. Why can we do focus though?
Because you're aiming at something without clicking it, so it cannot be clicked. It's
If I go back in here,
the
this is the
website.
title.
Yeah, it's just focusing the mouse action into it, but not really clicking on it.
So as a human, we can also focus, right? You can literally see my cursor is there. Okay, so that's why we can. Okay, now can we hover?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, because your mouse is right there hovering, like right this. It's hover. Just like that. You see, if you hover, you get all these options. Okay. Before you hover, you don't see these options. So that means you have to use that. You have to use the action hover action. Can we use uncheck here or no?
No,
If you say
because
no, I want to know why.
it's not a click. It's not a checkbox where you go and check something. I
Okay.
guess.
I want
Yeah.
other people to also answer too.
Sorry.
Try to be interactive. No, you're good. Just speaking to those who are quiet, because you see the engagement, class engagement, it is not there. You'll get stuck on homework, and then you'll suffer for the next 8, 10, 15 hours trying to figure things out, and you'll watch me regardless. You'll probably watch me multiple times this video to get yourself out of the mess. But why not just focus now so you don't have to? All right, so can we use click method?
No, we cannot use click method because
Yes.
it's not a link.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna as a human, I'm gonna click on it, okay? Okay, I clicked on it. Nothing happened. But that doesn't mean I cannot click on it. It's just nothing gonna happen. Remember, it's mimicking human, and that's it, right? So if I as a human click on it and nothing happened, that's exactly what should I expect from Playwright. Right? So I can actually do the click. Okay, so I can do the click, but nothing is gonna happen because we're mimicking humans. So that way, if a human audience or users use the application, they don't have to face any problems. So that way we can test this application in the point of humans or users. Okay. Otherwise, they don't need you. Otherwise, they don't need you because developers already write the test. Okay, what kind of test developers write? Let's see. Let me ask. Marjana, can you tell me that? Because we talked about it last time. What kind of test developers do? Okay, Shahid, you want to answer this question? Okay, Marjana, you unmuted, so go ahead. We're not hearing you, so I don't know if your audio is working or not.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
Is it end-to-end testing, unit testing, functional testing?
So- See, if they do end-to-end testing, then they don't need you. They're not going to hire you, right?
Is it unit testing?
That's our job. It's unit testing. Unit testing because, and what is unit testing? It's just testing the code. They don't have to come in here. They don't have to see how it looks like. They don't care. They just test the code. But then we care about how it looks. We care about the interaction, and we care about how the user will suffer if there is any specific issues, right? And we care about all those scenarios. That's what makes you a valuable asset to a team, even more valuable than a developer. Think about it. You are the one who's making sure the product is nearly perfect. Obviously, you cannot have 100%, but at least nearly perfect before it goes up. Can you imagine like Chase Bank not having an application having buggy? Can you imagine like how much money they could lose? Can you like the amount of trolling and an investor losing interest in them would be like huge just because they don't have somebody like you testing. And it doesn't cost a lot to you guys. You know that, right? The company spending maybe 150 on you. It's not pretty much, it's justified. It's totally justified. Even if you find one bug per year, even if you find one bug per month during testing, and that's all you could find, this is still totally justified your salary of $150,000. In the contrast, they don't have you there. And now they're losing millions, if not billions of dollars because there's this one thing that somebody couldn't find, or there's one bug. Okay, so never think that your job is just, I'm just a tester, I'm just testing. You will be given more attention than a developer. When you say I cannot release, when you say release is not ready, even the CTO may come running to you. And by the way, a CTO is only one person in the whole company who decides the technology and the direction of technology, who pays your checks, who hires, your bosses, okay? He'll probably come and ask you, hey, what's going on? Can we release? You'll see like all these bigger people coming and begging you to release, and you're gonna say, no, I'm not comfortable. There's this bug and that bug. Let me show you. And we shouldn't go today. We should go tomorrow after more testing, right? Think about it, the level of significance that your work have in a team. Okay, so I want you to understand first, this is very important. This is not something like, oh, I'm just gonna go join, I'm gonna stay in the corner and I'm gonna try to stay out of things and I'll be fine for 5 years. If that is the kind of mindset you have, then you're not gonna last more than 3 to 4 months, and you're never gonna probably go back to this kind of career. But it doesn't have to be that, right? Because it's not that hard to be very, very critical. You're not building anything. You're just criticizing other people's work, and that's totally fine. You're basically finding other people's issue, and that shouldn't be hard, right? I mean, as long as you apply all these things that we talked about, the techniques, testing techniques, basically the STLC. So guys, I'm going to ask you random questions about STLC. So hopefully you guys, because that's more important than even automation. Okay, so we got the class name, the banner title, we can only click, okay? But then click doesn't do anything. Maybe we can use get text, okay? So now that we have text, we can verify if the text is there or not, right? We can actually verify. We can use is visible, okay? Is visible with a question mark, that is a Boolean that's gonna either tell you yes or no, which means true or false. And if it's true, that means it found it. If it's false, it didn't find it, then you can fail the test, right? So you can do something like that with your class, right? The next one is gonna be, I'm gonna move a little bit fast because we're spending too much time, but let's talk about the next one, okay? The next one is XPath, and XPath looks a little bit crazy, right? It looks more programmatic. And I'll show you how to find XPath, because XPath requires its own class, because remember, I have to teach you how to make an XPath. But the easiest thing you can do, you can actually just have your browser give you the XPath. So for example, this link, I want an XPath, I can right click, copy, go ahead and copy the XPath. I'm gonna paste it right here. Okay, right there, and that's your XPath for that specific link. How do you use this XPath with Playwright? Nothing new. Is everything else the same? Okay, you don't have to specify because Playwright is intelligent, right? If you ever use any other automation tool, you would know what I'm talking about. Is that any other automation tool, you would probably specify, oh, I'm about to use XPath, please make sure it's XPath, right? Here you can just say locator and it will figure out if it's an XPath, if it's a name, if it's a class name, if it's an ID, whatever is the case, and it will find it. Okay. Now on a link, what can we do on a link, guys? What are some actions that we can do on a link? We got this stuff. Okay. Tell me which ones you can do right here. And I'm gonna ask this question to, let's see. I want to ask the same people, so give me 1 second, that I'm just going through the list here. So Bilal, you want to answer this question? What can we do to a link as a user or a regular user of the application?
Can I answer it?
Okay, sure, go for it.
Yeah, sorry, I was looking at it from my phone, so it's a little bit small.
By the way, that's a good topic. If you are using phone, with an exception, maybe because you're busy, whatever is the case today, but I would like you guys to go from the computer, and that's pretty strict, because remember, if I ask you to write something like the other day, where you guys set everything up on the fly, you can't do it from the phone. Later on, you would end up doing the same class for no reason. You're wasting time. You'll be wasting time here, and then later on, you'll have to watch it again. So, so I would expect everybody to use a computer. If you don't have one, let me know. But if you do, make sure you use your laptop, because then you don't have to do it twice, same work. Go ahead. You can tell me. what can we do on a link?
We can click.
What else? We have a list of things on your screen, which ones that we can do and which one we cannot.
We can hover over.
Mm-hmm. So click, hover, what else?
Locator press.
You can press, yeah. What else?
You could check and uncheck.
No, I mean, let's see if I, as a human being, can I check? This is the link. How do I check
Mhm.
this? I can't, right? Just look, I can hover, I can click, right? But there is other thing I can do, which is I can actually verify the text. I can actually get the text of the link. Okay. Because as a human, I can read the text. That means I can also read the text with the with Playwright. Okay, so that's gonna be your XPath. The first part is always locating the element. Okay, so that's the idea. Just take the idea today, right? The first part is locating the element by all means. You have ID, you have name, you have class, you have XPath. What else, guys? What else after XPath?
CSS selector.
Okay, and that's one of my favorite because CSS selector is by default enabled by Playwright. So you don't even have to mention anything. You can actually continue to use CSS selector. So CSS selector, it's going to be exact same way. The only thing is when you are creating a locator, you can just right click, copy, and this is the CSS selector, okay? This one. So you copy this and paste it, it'll work for you. But I wouldn't recommend to get browser recommendation. From the browser, this tool is actually outdated. This developer tool, I would say a little bit outdated because our Playwright gives us better selector than what the browser gives us. I mean, I wouldn't say outdated. It's just maybe different ways of dealing with the same problem. Now, if you right click and find your locator here, which is great, not a problem. This is another way to do it, but I would prefer using Playwright Inspector. This is an inspector also, but Playwright Inspector is way, way better. It does more than just, giving you these items. It's only going to give you this, okay? So you can use that, but also just know that this is an option. This is something that they would expect you to know, like how to get around this, okay? Because if you automated something in your entire career, obviously you know how to deal with a web page. Okay, so that's your CSS selector. It's going to be same exact thing. It's just that inside you just put the CSS selector by copying it from here or copying it from your code that you just generated. What else? What other ones that we have? I'm gonna actually list it here because not everything that I can. Locators. All right, list all locators for. Boom. Oh, there you go. All right. All right. So here it is. Should have just Googled this first because I was like trying to find it from here. It didn't work. But anyways, so these are in addition to what we listed here, right? So let me just finish with the number 6 and number 7. So the next one, we got the partial link is one. And we can use the HTML DOM. You can use the hierarchy as well. These are out of box locators that you can use in addition to what Playwright gives you, which is also this. Okay, you can also use role, text, label, placeholder, alt text, title, and test ID. Test ID is a locator the developer specifically put it in their code for you and for you only, meaning a test engineer is going to be using test ID for their need. Okay, if you see test IDs in your application, that means the developer was nice enough to put that for you. Okay, that means how you're going to see test ID, right? For example, if you come here, if I go to like the request to code, and obviously you can tell them like I want test IDs for everything, and they will probably do it for you, but I wouldn't bet on it, right? So for example, this is the element, this is a link. What the developer will do, they will make a new attribute. Let me go ahead and edit this HTML. So you see, this is a class name is already there. So now they're gonna say test data ID, I believe, and dash ID, something like this is equal to maybe this is a link, right? So I'm gonna say auto insurance, which is the link. So something related name, right? Is again in SURANCE, right? And that's it. And I'm gonna go ahead and save this. So now we got the saved. Now if I do find, and I can actually use this, I can now go ahead and copy, and I can go ahead and use this to find that specific locator. Notice, right? Now it finds it. It finds this specific locator, 1 of 1, and it highlights this. That means it's the right one. So developer will be nice enough to add those for you. So look at the locator. These are in addition to this, okay? Now you know the reason why everybody is jumping and running toward Playwright is because not only is simplicity, but also it's easy to use, and also it has way too much help for anybody who's automating. So as you can see, all of these can be used. And not only that, you can see how to use them. As you can see, look, get by label, and you put the label. So for example, if you want to use get by label, for example, username to fill in something, you cannot just basically, okay, let's see. We have to find that this one should have label. So in this case, we don't see any label. Can you use it? Can you use get by label? Okay, this one to fill in information when you see no labels here. Okay, Hossein, you want to answer that?
Sorry, what's the question?
Okay, my question is, we have a method right here that actually locating the element by label, right? And then it fills out the information like first name, for example, right? This one, I want to fill out information here. Can I use get label? Get by label.
Sorry.
I don't think so because
It's a
there's
yes,
no
no
label.
question.
Yeah, it's no
Okay.
because
Because, go ahead.
I don't think so because there's no label in this field.
Exactly. So if I was to use this, then I would probably request developer to add the label. Obviously, I shouldn't, right? Because now, think about it. I have 7 options here. And then in addition to that, I have these built-in option from Playwright adds it. So 7 plus another 6 or 7 of them, right? So 14 options total. Now, with that option, if I don't try all of them, and then I ask developer, can you add a label to this? And then he's gonna say, did you try the ID? I added ID for you. Who looks, basically, because you're talking to a programmer and you're also a programmer. You guys are gonna relate to this, right? So you are writing programs to automate his, basically test his work, right? And then you're saying, hey, I would appreciate it if you add a label to this specific text field. And you say, okay, why do you need that? And you go, oh yeah, because I can't interact with it. I want to type something in it, but I can't. Oh, there is name and IDs there. I added. What do you see then? What do you say then, right? Right. So that's why I was saying in the very beginning, you need to have options. Now in this case, you have 14 options. As a QA engineer, you choose which option fits your need. You choose to go with whichever you want. Now the question is, in a team, there's always some sort of a standard, right? Because they want the code to look similar rather than crazy. Your code look crazy versus another person's code looks more easy to read. And they'll probably favor more on the easy to read. So they will agree, there will be a mutual agreement between team, like your team as a QA engineer, will be like, oh, let's try to use as much as possible IDs. But if we don't have ID, the next possible selection should be name, and the next possible selection should be CSS locator. Some team will say, no matter what, we're gonna use CSS locator because you can convert ID to a CSS locator, you can convert name to a CSS locator, you can convert anything to a CSS locator. So it makes sense for you to continue to use CSS locator because you can actually take anything and turn it into a CSS locator. So many teams will say, okay, yeah, let's use CSS locator. And then the other benefit of CSS locator is that it's faster than any of these. It's faster than XPath as well to locate the element. It matters. So for example, you have 1,000 test cases that goes through this flow. Because you're using XPath, it takes 1 extra second. Okay, so 1 second times 1,000. That's like what? How many minutes is that? Right? That's just extra time that you're using for no reason. So that also matters which locators you're using. My favorite is CSS locator. In an interview, if they ask you, you choose a CSS locator, and they say why. It's faster. Plus, I can turn anything into a CSS locator, ID plus name, and all that, right? So it just makes sense to just be, everybody using it. You can also be neutral to say, okay, well, I use various locator over the years. My most recent company or the team, we prefer using CSS locator, and I just basically follow that as the standard of our team, and that's it. You don't have to say I'm right. My standard of the team is this. No, you never have to say that. You always have to say in my team we follow this, and maybe in your team there is other ways. But for the time being, I'm following this. That's it. So there is no right or wrong. Nobody is right or wrong in that case. Okay. So now you have all this, right? So you can see drop down. You can use first you have to locate the element. Then you have to use the select option. It takes a argument in order to give you what you're trying to select. Okay. Next, let's go to the assertions. Guys, any questions on these actions? And what kind of actions that you can do to these elements that you have? Should you be able to write your test automation yourself without even recording? Give me confidence level 1 to 10. Can you write your test without recording? Anybody?
6, 7, yeah.
You got 6, 7. That's pretty good. Anything above 5 is good to me.
If you don't mind, can you repeat once more? How do you add the element, the portion you explained before?
Yeah, but you got to ask me the right question, right? So give me specifically what you're looking to do. Like, for example, you have these elements that you're dealing with on a web page. Our goal is to do interaction with them in order to fulfill maybe a workflow of the actual user to see if that works. And therefore, we validate if later on, if a user try to follow the same workflow, they should be able to do what they need to do in a web application. For that to happen, we have to use locators. We got the 7 locators here, and then we got the other 7 in the Playwright built-in locators that we can use. So now you have 14. The goal is to locate the element before you do any action, right? All we're doing action, but first you have to locate them. In order to locate, you use the locator or use the other custom locators to find the element first, and then you can do action, right? And that is the basic concept of test automation of any tools. It doesn't have to be Playwright. It doesn't have to be Cypress. It doesn't have to be Selenium. It could be anything, any automation tool existed today in the history does it this way. It needs to know exactly where things are in order to make an interaction. In our case, filling a text field with the word John is an interaction. That means we're doing an action, right? You are actually filling in. You're trying to fill in. That's an action class, meaning that is an action interaction that you're doing. If you're looking for is visible, that is also you're seeing if that is actually exist. If you're clicking on it, still an interaction. If you're selecting an option from dropdown, it's still an interaction. Now let's go back to look into your code. Okay, this is the few tests that we wrote last time through our recordings, and as you can see now, it feels much familiar, don't you think? Look at this test and tell me if this seems much familiar to you as of right now compared to the beginning of the class. It doesn't,
Yes.
or it does?
It does.
Okay. I can make it bigger if you guys want. Okay, so then there are a few things that left here that you don't understand, right? For example, expect, right? Expect is a built-in assertion. And now I'm gonna basically ask you guys a question before I can even explain that. So this is the next topic. If you go back in here, this is the assertion topic, right? My question would be, and we're looking at the built-in assertions, would be what is assertion? But let's talk about tests in general, right? Test case. What makes a test case? Okay. What can you take out of the test case that will no longer make it a test case? What will make a test case, basically?
I mean, the foundation of a test case will be the test scenario.
No, test scenario is a test scenario, right? What does a test case contain? This was a homework. Tell me what are the things that all of you guys got a template from the homework.
Is a test case ID, test scenario, test step definition.
Okay,
action result.
I'll stop you right there. You said test scenario, that's already a red flag there. So let's go ahead and somebody else. By the way, I'm not gonna name it. Somebody had an interview yesterday, and this was the question. What does a test case contain? And
Test steps.
and guess what the answer was, right? Obviously, if the homework was done the right way, you would be able to answer it. Okay. So now tell me the steps. Sorry, tell me the things that a test case contains.
Result.
Automatically, but give me, like, I mean, come on, you can't just guess, right? I mean, you give me guessing, that means you're giving me one things from the bottom and top and all of that, right?
Test description,
Okay, so you got the test description. What else?
precondition,
Actual result. Expected result.
Actual result. So
Expected
result comes first, or actual result comes first?
Expected.
steps.
Expected.
Expected, right? Because you didn't test anything yet.
Post
Actual
condition.
result has failed, right? I mean,
Comments.
okay, so, and then you can have comments and other things. You can have as many things as you need depending on your team. So this is not going to be the same exact template for your team. Your team say, okay, maybe we want another one called steps, right? You know, like, it's really depending on your team and how they want to follow. But then it's the basic concept is going to be same, right? Now, which one, if I remove it from here, that will no longer make it a test case? What is the one thing that I can remove from here that will no longer make it a test case? It's basically invalidate the test case. It's no longer a test case.
steps,
The description.
Prescriptions.
No. I
Comment.
can still test.
ID.
Pass and fail.
Wait. Somebody says comment. Comment is just an optional. If you want to say, you know, if you want to basically tell your coworker something like, hey, I tested this and this happened, right? This is just optional. This is the comment is even not even like essential to your test case.
Expected
Pass and
result.
fail.
The precondition.
No. Precondition, it's an optional. ID is automatic. It's not, it's optional. ID you will never create anything.
Expected result.
There we go. Expected result. Okay. I'll tell you why. If you are testing something, let's say you are a home inspector. Okay. You know what? I'll make it more interesting. Everybody eats in a restaurant. If you're a restaurant inspector for food and you go there and you don't have any expectation, you have zero expectation, meaning you don't know exactly what you should be checking, how things should be, what is the temperature should be of the food, if it's in the freezer versus if it's in the, you know, hot plate, whatever is the case, right? Steam tables. What happened then? Like, can you actually do anything? Like you're a like you're basically inspecting your food inspector. So think like, just imagine yourself for a second. You go to the restaurant and you have no idea how things should be. There is no expectation. You didn't have any list of expectation, right? Can you come out of the restaurant with giving them at least some sort of evaluation?
No, you don't know what you're looking for.
Exactly. So how can a test be a test if you don't have an expectation, right? Actual result is just what you're validating against. A test should always have a expected result. And when you're doing manually, you're just validating that, okay, this should match with this. Everything else that you have is just to help identifying your expected result so you can match it with your actual results. And then pass and fail is just the outcome of your test. What happened? If the expected result matches with actual, then it passes, otherwise it fails. And then comment, which is not even significant. I don't even include comments. All right, comment is just, okay, if you want to be nice, go ahead and say, yeah, this date and that date, I tested this and it was passed, whatever is the case. And this is just an extra work for no reason. This is like almost not necessary, right? So when you write test automation and you don't have assertions, right? Is that a automated test? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? You have no expectation at all, and you wrote your test case. Is that going to be acceptable? Is that a test? Can you consider that as a test?
No, it's not valid, right?
Yeah, it's never going to fail. You're going to be like, your manager is going to be like jumping up and down thinking, wow, you wrote so many test cases and everything is green. Everything is passing. You wrote 1,200 test cases and we don't have a single test failure. That's amazing, right? But in reality, it's not doing anything, right? Because you didn't tell your code to check for anything at all. You're just going, clicking, moving around, and that's it, right? If you get lucky, it may catch one or two things because if it's not there and try to click, but you're not specifically testing anything at all. Your test case is always going to be passing. Everybody's going to love you until when? Until when do you think they will love you?
Until a bug comes out in production.
So, yeah.
Okay, until the release happen. Now you are just a bad cop at this moment, meaning like they're gonna, just like how in the real world, one guy messes up and the whole world, even like the cop, goes against him like, wow, this guy is dirty. Even your coworkers, your QA, everybody's like, wow, this person, like, but I don't think you will be seeing that day. You'll probably be let go sooner than later, right? One thing in like, especially software development is that they don't mind spending money, but they don't like bad, work. They don't mind spending money. They don't mind the extra time. You can take extra time, not a problem. You can actually sleep extra day and then say, I'm working on it, and they'll be fine with it. But then you give them premature work that was not well done, that can take your job, right? It's okay to spend extra time, not a problem. It's never okay to say, I did it, even though you didn't, because that's going to come and bite you at some point. Not today, but tomorrow, at some point. So our test automation needs to have assertions, because a test cannot be a test if you don't have any expectation. The reason why the word expect and assertion is very foreign to you is because you never used it. Assertions from now on, I want you to understand, is that you're validating expected versus actual results, okay? That's assertion. So I'm going to be addressing assertion as that, and moving forward, I shouldn't hear anything about what is assertion. Okay, so just put it in your mind. This is a rule of thumb. Assertion is just a test. We're basically validating something. With Playwright, it includes built-in assertions. Selenium or any other tool do not have built-in assertions. I think, yeah, Cypress has it, but it's crazy. But anyways, I wouldn't even bring it up because you don't know what Cypress is. There's another tool that has it. But other than that, Selenium do not have their own assertions. You'd have to add another library to say, I would like to validate this. And then you will be able to have access to the word expect. So, for example, you got the expect right here. You're looking for that to be truth, right? So this is just an example, right? If you want to validate a page title, you can say expect page to have title is this, okay? When you put these, the regular expression, like // notice there is no quotation. That means you're using regular expression. And that means you're saying, as long as the title has the word playwright, give me pass this step will pass. If the title is like 1 page long title, but then somewhere it has playwright word, it will pass the test. Okay, because that's just you're just specifically saying I only care about the word. Okay. Now, if you are asserting, you have so many assertion examples here, and every time you click on it, you would be able to see how that was implemented. And not only that, if you record, you get expect, right? You have expect, you can actually do assertions with recording, which maybe, I guess it's 8:42, maybe we'll do one test today, just to make sure those who didn't do the homework, they can at least do their 10 test cases, plus another 10 test cases, which is 20. Those who did it, you can release, right? That's one of the things that I was saying in the very beginning. You take one day at a time. You don't wait for the last judgment day and do everything. Okay. Who can do that kind of thing? Somebody who's an expert, like somebody who knows, okay, fine, I'll be fine at the end of the day. But even then, it's probably not the right thing to do, right? So you take one day at a time, 1 minute at a time. Like if you're here, you should be truly here. And truly just paying attention to this. So later when you watch the video, this is just a second time. But if you're watching the video and you have wow moment, wow, I get it now, that means you didn't pay attention. Just make sure you do that, because nobody can learn automation. And I'll tell you, and I write it down on a piece of paper and give it to you. Nobody can learn automation or programming in general if they don't practice. Okay. This document is available to you for free. Okay. You could have just do the whole thing on your own, but you can't, because you need the professional guidance, number one. Number two is that you don't know where to focus. And number three would be you need to get specifically, specific homeworks, and so that way you can challenge yourself. Otherwise, you're never going to challenge yourself. If this was up to you, you would just say, okay, I know how this works. That's it. Move on. No homework. But homework is something that I count on. I specifically look at it, and I need you guys to start doing it. If you, obviously, you're gonna have 20 test cases, but you have the whole weekend. So I don't feel bad about it. But like I said, if you have a struggle, you can reach out to somebody from the class. But I would expect you do yourself. Otherwise, the next class you'll be still going back to that person. You don't want to do that. Now, assertions, remember, you got the first, you locate the locator, and then you can say it should be checked if it's a checkbox. Let's say somehow you want to see if a checkbox is checked. All you have to do is use this. If you want to see a button is enabled, sometimes buttons are disabled on the web page. You can check it should be enabled before you even want to click on it, right? What if the button doesn't enable itself until you fill up some information? Okay, so then you want to use this. If the button is disabled, then I want to fill out those information before I move on. Okay. Same thing, visible. What if you want to see if something is there before you want to do anything? What if you have a paragraph and you want to see if that paragraph have a specific text that you're looking for? Then you have this. So similar to that, you have so many examples of assertion, so many assertions, built-in assertions that you can use to truly build your test case. You're not limited anymore. Okay, you can actually now create test case with assertions, and you can locate the elements on your own. Any questions about assertion? Okay, let's move on because we have two more topics, hooks and the isolation, test isolation, guys. So this is basically you know, like let's say you don't know where to stop. You started your test case in the beginning of the page, beginning of the website, and you just keep going at it, and you have like 3 pages worth of, you know, long list of code because you just don't know where to stop. You have to make sure that you have a purpose of your test case, okay? So that way you can isolate them. You can put them in a different test cases. You cannot go and test everything in one pass, okay? So for example, in this page, if your job is to verify if the zip code should be 5-digit only, you fill out everything valid, and here you try it first 5-digit, one test case done. That's a positive test case. You're not gonna go and continue enter another, you know. You're gonna come back and you're gonna try a negative test case, which is less than 5-digit. Then you're gonna come back, you're gonna do another one that is more than 5-digit, right? To validate. That's like what I just said is boundary value analysis, by the way. So you have 3 test cases that you'll be validating, but most importantly, you're not gonna put everything together because when the test fails, you don't know exactly what failed. Was it for 5-digit? Was it for 4-digit? Was it for 3-digit? Whatever is the digit that you have. If you put everything at the same time, you're just gonna be like, oh, I don't know which caused the failure. Now you have to run it and see it with your own eyes, right? So you don't want to group your test to the point where the test become huge. But also you don't want to have a test where, oh, I log in, I check the first name and done. I log in and I check the last name, it's done. Okay. It has to have some kind of flow. You have to at least get to somewhere. You have to have some expectation. You have to have some steps. You can't just, you know, you can just create 1 million test cases because you did one thing at a time. That's going to be inefficient, right? The whole purpose of automation is efficiency, and so you can combine more than one test case compared to manual test cases, but you don't want to combine too many test cases at the same time, right? Just keep in mind. So that is just test isolation for you, where you can actually have more than just one test in the same spec file, and you can put them this way. Okay, let's go into the hooks. Okay, hooks is going to be helping you, those who did the homework. Okay, what does hook means is that maybe you are visiting this website for every single test case. Okay, and if that is the case, you can use the word before each. So what it will do, you write only one line of code that will be applied to every test cases that you have in the same file. Okay, so you have 20 test cases in the file. If you put this line in the beginning, it will go to this URL for every single test case because you're using before each. Okay, and it will go ahead and apply this line first. So that's before hook. Before each, you have after each. So what if you want to log out after each test case? You can have one, you can copy this and put it in the bottom and put after each, and you can actually log out, right? So you're visiting this link before each test, and then you're logging out after. So let's see an example of this. We're going to write a test, and then test isolation, you guys already know. I mean, you know, we have multiple test cases. So I'm going to probably give you guys an example of both at the same time. As of right now, that's actually is everything for today's topic. So we're going to go ahead and do some hands-on work. And then the next thing will probably generating test. You guys already know that, but we're going to go in a bit more. As you can see, it's a lot, right, for us to cover. But you shouldn't see that as a lot. You should see that as, wow, one more thing I'll learn about this tool that I know already. Some of you guys probably feel like you can automate already and be able to work in a team already. And that is true. I'm not going to criticize you. I'm not going to say, okay, wow, he's running already. That's fine. That is true. You can actually automate right now test cases and be able to still work. But then it'd be better if you know more things that you have available to you. Okay, so with that said, let's look at this test case. I'm gonna like break this down and make it into two different test cases. So let's say we're going into this website, right? And I'm gonna put it into the before hook. So let's look how the structure of the before hook is. Okay, and where is it? It's right here. Okay, so basically, let's read this a little bit because we need to have a describe and all that stuff in it, right? So you can use various test hooks such as test describe to declare group of tests, okay? And then you can use before each and after each, which are executed before and after each test, okay? So let's go ahead and group our tests into one. That's the first thing we're gonna do because we're gonna have more than one test case here. And then we'll go from there. You know what? Let me just create another test case using this. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually generate a test case by recording. Those who didn't see it now. Okay, so in this thing right here, okay, you got commands, okay, to use. If you already use the command, you can use up and down arrow for you to actually reuse the same command instead of typing it in. So for my case, I typed this before, so I don't have to type it in again. npx playwright codegen. Codegen is to create your test automatically, you know, and this is the website that I want to test. I want a second test case, as you can see. I already have one test case, so I'm going to go ahead and enter. And it should open up few things, okay? So it's going to open up this browser and you should see incognito. And it's always going to be incognito unless you change the configuration and specifically say, I don't want incognito, okay? So now that you're here, you can see anything that I do here, it's like pretty much ready to record it, okay? So the first thing I can do, so the last time we clicked on record a code, I'm going to click on payment and claims today, okay? So I clicked on it. As you can see, payment and claims were clicked, got recorded. The next thing I want to do is that I want to make sure I'm going to verify this specific header. So I'm going to go ahead and click on AB. AB is for text assertion. Okay. I'm going to click on this. I'll go ahead and choose this. And then it says, are you sure you want to click on create an assertion for text? Okay. And I'm going to say yes. And done. Okay. So we created a text assertion for H1 to make sure it contains this specific text. The next thing I want to do is maybe do more assertions. For example, all of these companies that is supported by this or whatever the payment is supported by. I'm just going to do nationwide for now because I don't want to go through each and every single one. So I'm going to click on the I. Okay, I is for element assertion. Okay, so I'm going to say this element, this image should be there. The name of the image is allied. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and it did an image assertion for me. Okay. So at least in my view, this is a complete test. I'll go ahead and copy this. Okay. I'm going to copy this one. I'm going to go ahead and terminate this browser for now. I can also continue to create more test cases if I want to. So I don't need that for now. I'll go ahead and paste it here. Control. Sorry, did I copy even? No, I didn't copy it. Okay. I'll go ahead and copy that. Thank God I didn't remove it. Okay, I'll go ahead and copy this. Okay, so just like last time, okay, we need to name our test something, right? So I'm going to say, verify that user can see company honey logo for nationwide at payment and claims page, right? So you're basically being direct exactly what's happening and where. Let's group our tests based on what we see. When you group your tests, you can actually see them in the same tree and the results. So it's actually good. So in order to group your tests, you have to use the word describe. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And you can see you have to close. So let's open it right there in the beginning. Paste. Okay. And then I have to close it. If I go in here, I think the Copilot should give me the, no, Copilot didn't. It doesn't know what I'm doing. So copy. So these guys are inside already. I just need this and this. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and paste it. Okay. And it's done. Right. So I added the description of the group, which contains 2 tests inside. I'm going to give it a nice name. Okay. The name should be like what? Insurance website for agent tests or something. Like you can name it whatever the test should be, like as a group, you can do this kind of group. Okay. So now that I have added the group and I have 2 tests, I'm gonna go ahead and just run it real quick to see exactly what happens. If you want to run it, see yourself with your own eyes. What is the command, guys? You guys know?
Control C.
Dash UI.
Who said Control C?
Me.
Why do you think Control C?
Control C, then you go to the test test UI.
What does Control C does?
Oh, the press up arrow, my bad.
Exactly. So you gotta watch yesterday's last week, maybe one more time, because Control C just terminates whatever you have. This is the command that you need, npx playwright test dash UI, so that way you can see it. You can see what you are running. I'm gonna go ahead and enter that, and now I can run whatever test I have. So let's see, where is my test? So intrusion test, verify this and verify that. Notice now is under this, like you see how the tree looks like now? And that is because I grouped these tests. I can run the whole group. I'm gonna run 2 tests right now and see what happens. Okay, so both passed. Well, was it that fast? Let me see. What? Let's see if I can slow it down. It's just probably too fast. What? Just happening. Oh, okay, never mind. Okay. All right, right here. So I was in the group, so that's why I didn't see anything. If I go into the test, you can see for each line exactly what happened. This can also help you find a bug very, very quickly, which is Selenium do not have, right? The other thing. So you can see we don't have any after hook, before hook, or anything like that. So go ahead and now we're gonna add before and after hook. What is the purpose of before and after hook is that when you have multiple tests and they share common code, we can move them to one place and we don't have to do it again because it'll do it for us. Okay. So let's see what the before code block looks like. Always go in the block. So this is the before test block. I'm going to copy this from here to save myself a little bit of time. And then I'm going to paste it here inside of the group. Okay. And then, by the way, teach you guys a shortcut. If you see how the code test looks like, you're going to fix that. You're going to do Control A. And you're going to do, obviously, like for Mac users, Control Shift L or Control, I think P, I believe P or something. But anyways, if you want to see the shortcut, you can right click. It's called Format Document, which is Control Shift F. Okay, that's the shortcut. And now it fixed my code to be the way that I want it to be. So I noticed that the first line is shared among both. So I'm going to remove that because this is shared. Okay. Let's go ahead and do. Let's go ahead and copy. Actually cut it from here and paste it here. That's the first B. Okay. So I removed it from there. And I know that I'm verifying I'm on the right page. So I should probably also take this out of here because for both, I will do the same thing. So I'm going to remove it from here also. So these 2 lines should be firing for both tests, right? So that's that done. And I can remove this line also. And now we have our tests a little bit more, maybe, better looking, because now this runs with before hook will run before each test, okay? So I expect to go to this website before even running this code, right? And then same thing for this. What if we want to do after, right? Let's say after the test done, you want to just do something else. You can actually, I'm going to copy this to save me time and then see and then put after there. So maybe after you want to do something else, we'll find something to do after. Okay. By the way, before and after, no matter where you put them, it doesn't matter. It will still work. Okay. So I can put the app before also at the bottom, and it will still do before. It is designed to do whatever it's designed to do. It doesn't have to be, the orientation doesn't matter, which comes first and down. It doesn't matter, right? Only for the web, only for the hooks. Okay. So not for these. This is linear. It has to be one after the other. So now you have after each, we don't want to do nothing. Maybe after each we want to do, let's see. Let me go back to the website, come up with some idea. What should we do after? Okay, so just to show you guys, maybe we'll go ahead and after it's done, I'm gonna go to homepage just to see. And after the test is done, let's see what we can do. Okay. Where's the logging? Is there any logging here? Okay, you know what? After that, we just want to go to homepage. Okay, so I'm just gonna click this. I just want to click on this link. Now I'm not gonna record it because you're gonna tell me how to do that. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do that here. After that, we just want to go to the home. Who can here tell me what I should do here? Okay. Await, I'm gonna start you with await page. What should I do?
So we can take the inspect of home.
Okay, so you want me to do
look at the
inspection?
element.
Okay. Okay, I'll go ahead and do that for you. That's the home. This is your locator.
Uh,
What do you have to do next?
so maybe ID class name or anything else. I'm not talking about the
No,
link.
you tell me. You can clearly see what we can use, right? So you tell me.
So we first look it into the, is there any ID class or name to go back to the home page?
No, but you tell me, right? You see clearly. You don't have to guess like if it's there or not. You're seeing my screen and I'm showing you. So you tell me
So-
what locator we'll be using here.
Yeah, I can see the class.
Where is the class?
Is that down?
This is
Below?
your element. Where is the class?
Okay. So we can
Who
use the
else want to
text
try
property
before we
also.
move on? You don't have an ID, you don't have a class. I mean, I can't see it. You tell me if there is, if I do something.
If
If I
there
see
is no
something
any
different,
ID class or name, so we can use the text property also.
you can use the text, right? Home, which
Mhm.
is the text property. But then there is a risk. What if this home text property belongs to other places, right? So we have to see if that actually exists. If home exists multiple places, your playwright is going to be like, oh, what are you trying to do, right? So we have to think about that also. You can also say like, headers link and then the first link. You can also say that like, okay, headers link has a class name. Okay. You see two class name. It has one. Whenever you see space in class name, that means it's multiple class name. The first, I'm going to go with the second one is more descriptive, which says headers link. I can say I want to click on the first link from headers link. If you look for headers link, you'll see all of these link exist inside of headers link, right? 1, 2, and 3. Okay. This guy
We can
contains
check with
1,
that
2,
Ctrl
and
plus
3.
F. We can check that is
Okay,
there.
yeah, but you can't guess around, right? So
Mhm.
it's programming. We don't guess. You tell me exactly what to do, I'll do it.
You can
You
use
have two options,
selector,
right?
XPath, right click, copy.
Right click, copy. So this is the option where when you have nothing else, you cannot do anything. You're just block or whatever your boss is bothering you. You need to provide something. Then you just go ahead and use whatever browser gives you. You can copy the selector, and then you can test the selector also. If you do find, you can paste it here and see it gives you ugly looking one right here.
Mhm.
And that's the link. I mean, you got an ugly link, but it's okay. That's how you get it from the browser. But if you go through Playwright Inspector, it gives you a better one. So today I'm going to show you a little bit. So like, let's say this is where we want to check. We want to go back to homepage. I'm going to say page.pause, which is a method from Playwright to say exactly at this location, pause and give me the ability to take control. I'm gonna run the test and I'm gonna basically take control exactly after this. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna run the test normally. Oh, it's already open, so I might just go to the UI. I'm gonna run any of these because it's in the after each, it should be able to give me the control right after. So let's see. Okay. Okay, so I mean, it has to be non-UI mode actually. But we can also like just use this to right click. Okay, so if I click on this, let's see if it gives me watch all. No, never mind. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do non-UI mode because UI mode doesn't give you the kind of abilities, right? So I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna say playwright.test, and then it'll run all of them, but then it'll stop on the very first occasion of this test case and give you the ability. Okay, hold on a second. That's running a non-UI, sorry, non-GUI mode also. So I can say -- headed, if I can see what the hell's going on. And now it opened up 4 browsers to run all of these tests, okay? You can see it right there. Without the dashboard, you can see like it's going crazy. All these tests are running. Okay. Let's see, and it opened up, by the way. So you see, when you say pause, look, it paused it right here for every single test, okay? More than one test. So now that it paused it, obviously I'm running all of them. I can actually now say, you know what, I want to go ahead and find the locator. Okay, so I don't need to find which browser belongs to which one of these, actually, because we have so many that is open right now. So I think this one belongs to here. Okay, this one belongs to this guy. So I will, oh, they want to verify if you're human or not. So as you can see, the locator, this is the locator that Playwright gave it to me, which is much more simpler. So I would use that over the other one, okay? So that's how you get your locator, guys, okay? So like what I did here, I run all of them. You shouldn't run all of them. You should just run your one test when you are debugging, which is when you're saying I want to pause it. Okay, so now that pause is no longer needed because I already got my locator. I'm gonna go ahead and paste it here. And copy everything. So I gotta put the L right there. Okay, so now this is gonna go, you know, the first one, the very first link on the navigation bar. So I'm gonna say page.this. And now, like, what do I do here? If this is the first one, I can put it into like, you know, const first link, whatever. I'm just putting into a like variable. Remember, we did that in the very beginning of this class. I can now say await page.link click, and that's it. Right? So we're just doing it right after. Let's go ahead and run this test. So we can use UI mode in this case and go from there. I'm gonna actually turn off the rest of the browser because I don't want it to run on all browsers. So the way you do that, okay, see WebKit Firefox, I'll just run it on Chromium for the time being. And I will disable the others, so at least I can run only that. So it'll only run just just Chromium. Was running on 3. Okay. Okay, and then this is a 4 worker. We don't want to run on 4 workers, so I can just limit that. Let me see where that is. Parallel false. Okay, I don't want to run it right now parallel because you guys won't see what I'm doing because it's going to be too many browsers on my window. Let's not do that. Okay. So you see it, but it gave me. I'm going to go back and I'll just go ahead and run it this time headed mode. And then it open. So it's a single browser. Oh, still running parallel. Okay, so whatever I did didn't work in terms of the configuration. So we'll have to change that. Okay, so even this website is trying to see if you're a human or not, right? Which is, so these are the type of website you wanna avoid when it comes about automation, okay? Now let me ask you guys a question. Some of you guys had this issue with reCAPTCHA. I'm gonna put this back. Okay, so okay, there you go. Now the question is, when you have reCAPTCHA, how many people know what reCAPTCHA is? Everybody should know, right? When you use the application, come on, you use a website. Unless you're completely new to this browsing world, meaning you're using computer rarely, that's gonna be something, right? What is a reCAPTCHA? reCAPTCHA
Is to verify if you're human.
It's what we just
exactly.
saw, identifying the images. Yep, that's one.
Yep. So this is the reCAPTCHA also, right? If you click on it, it gives you some sort of stuff. Even if you click on it, it gives you a check mark. Now, if you tell your Playwright to click this one for you and click submit, do you think reCAPTCHA will catch whether you're a human or you're a robot? What do you think?
I think it would.
It would, right? Because you're not a human. How does it know? Because again, when Chrome browser was built, they created a driver. For who? For us. So we can actually automate. The driver is actually somewhere here. So that's how we are able to automate. If you go in here, you can actually see on your node, when you did the node npm install in the beginning, all the browser actually somewhere here saved. I gotta see where it is, but maybe Playwright Core has it. Whichever, we don't really care where it is because it does the work for us. We don't really care. But somewhere here, the browsers are there. As you can see, browser.json, all these browsers with different versions are here. And whenever you're dealing with a browser, it needs to have a driver, right? So all of these are created by, like whoever created the browser, they also created a driver. So that way, not only we can use it to test, but also they can test their own thing before having everybody else using it, right? So that's what we use. If you don't believe me, if you write Chrome driver online, you can see Google is giving it out for free, and you can get a new version of this every time they come up, right? So they have to create a driver every time they have a new version of Chrome. Okay, why? Because we use it to automate. So is they as well, right? Like when the team who's building these browsers, they also have automated tests. But most importantly, let's say you are building a product for your audience, customers, for example, and this browser doesn't give support to test your product, then you're not going to build it for that browser. You're going to give the business to somebody else like Firefox, who has the driver. So, it just makes sense for them to do it and make it easy for developers and people like us to test applications. So every browser has the driver. Okay, so it knows that if they automate it, okay? And then, for example, Facebook, you try to automate Facebook, it'll go and it'll tell you, it will give you some warning in the beginning before it blocking you, blocking your IP, right? Temporarily, obviously, but not permanently. That don't use the automated software to browse on Facebook because it's cost them money, right? They want the real people. They don't want bots, right? So that's why human verification, which is reCAPTCHA, and there are other ways to have reCAPTCHA, is not something that we can bypass as of right now using Playwright. Now your application has a reCAPTCHA, let's say. You just joined yesterday. Today you're trying to write your first test case and you face reCAPTCHA. What do you do? What will you do at that point? Do you give up and go home and say, okay, that's it, this is not where I can work because it has a reCAPTCHA? Galina, I mean, you worked, so you tell me. You guys can hear me, correct?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, so tell me, what will you do? Will you just quit the job and say, okay, I'm sorry, I learned how to do automation only without the reCAPTCHA? Is it something that you will do, or what other choices you have at that moment? Because I tell you guys
Try
on the
to
first homework,
identify how to test the reCAPTCHA or if there is any testing functionality.
I'm telling you, there's nothing you can do to the reCAPTCHA. reCAPTCHA was tested by Google, and your team added to the application. There is no need for you to test reCAPTCHA.
Tell the developer to disable it.
Okay, yeah, you basically tell the developer, this is a blocker for me. Disable it for me, at least temporarily, on a specific server, right? So let's say disable it for this code version so I can continue to test. And then when I'm done, you can enable it and release it to the public. So it'll be disabled at the testing phase. When you're done, it'll be enabled, but they might just ask you to do, hey, can you manually test that? Okay, with the enabling of the reCAPTCHA is working just as if, that doesn't mean you have to do every single test case. You just basically test only 1 or 2 test cases if there's any huge
What
blocker
about the
or not,
pop-up?
right? Pop-up is not a blocker, right? Pop-up is basically like like I said, any human verification that includes reCAPTCHA or anything else. If the pop-up does the same thing, verifying that if you are a human or not, we cannot, like we can't be outsmarting something that was built specifically, to capture whether you're a human or you're not. That's gonna be like almost all this work effort for nothing. Why would you want to do that? That was built for the purpose of identifying if you're a human or not. That means they did whatever they did, right? I mean, obviously, developers, now you're trying to hack it, which you shouldn't do. Why would you want to spend time on something that you know that it was done for a purpose? It has a purpose. Just leave it, and tell them disable it for you. That also raises another question. If you ever go and log into Chase Bank and it sends you a text message in the beginning, okay, how do you automate that? You're not going to be able to go to the phone right from the browser and then get the text message and then go back. Or you're not going to be able to go to the email, get the text message, and then continue. Because if you want to grab the message from your email, it may take 1 second, it may take 10 seconds, it may take 30 seconds, depending on the Gmail server or whichever you're using. So what do you do in that case?
You, hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Go
had
ahead.
a similar experience working with banking when it comes to things like that. They usually have a
Mhm.
backend testing as well where they push up notifications like let's say like if it's a fraud alert or anything like that, they kind of manually go through it and then send an alert, and then you run it with the automation tool that we were using. For example, like in that case, we were using Tosca. So I'm just probably guessing that it's something similar as to what you're asking.
Yeah, it's gonna be similar. You have an option. You tell them that you can disable two-factor authentication, which is that for the time being until you're ready to test that, which you will test manually later on. That's one option, which is like, okay, I don't want to spend too much time thinking about it. The other thing, you'll tell your developer to give you a 4-digit code that is hard-coded, right? Meaning like permanent code. No matter what email goes or what text message goes, that code works at all times. Okay, that's like a cheat code for you. You're gonna say, create me a cheat code. It will work at all times so that I can continue with my test. Why? So that will be another way so you can actually go through the flow. No matter what code was sent to your text message or email or whatever is the case, your code always will work. It's like a master code, right? So you're gonna ask for that. Say, look, I can automate it, not a problem, but I need like a master code, like a cheat code, like 6-digit that works at all times, regardless. So I can continue with this, So that's gonna be one way. Or another way what developers can do, they can actually display the code in somewhere in the application for you, only for the environment that you're in. Meaning like for actual customers, they will never see it, but only for you, they will keep the code somewhere within the application, so you can copy using Playwright and then paste it there and move on, right? So that's another option, which I wouldn't recommend, but that's another option. Developers can do it for you. But your go-to person is going to be developer and say, hey, I'm blocked give me an idea. How can I move on from this? Because this is something that I cannot, or Playwright cannot do, or the automation. Okay. So it's always good to ask questions. If you are blocked for like more than 2 hours, you should go and find help rather than sitting for 2 months. And then at the end, like, oh yeah, I want to quit, you know? So it's always give yourself a time to say, I have the next 2 hours. If I can't find a solution, I will ask somebody. And if you get fired for asking, then it's okay. You move on. Which never happens. Okay. Asking questions never get you to trouble, right? With that said, today we also did, we went through all of this topic. Okay. So the first one, second one, we're in the second item within the syllabus, right? We talked about all of these. We talked about the structure. We talked about how we can create this test case ourselves. All these actions. Now you should have a more readability of these test cases. You can have like few things like before and after hook that will help you, to automate your test cases without having to use the recorder. But I for the, at least for the homework, for the 20 test cases, for those who didn't do the test automation, for those 20 test cases, you can still use the generation, right? Generating the test case using the your code gen, which is going to be your last class. If you go to the YouTube channel, you'd be able to find that video. You can still continue. But so again, like I said, I don't want to be super strict and giving you guys an impression where, oh no, this is, it has to be that, but this is effectively a boot camp. And if you want to be a coder and technical, you have to invest time. And if you don't have the time, that's perfectly fine. But also, I don't want you to, since you don't have time at all, you should be spending your time wisely, not here, because it'll be wasted. Just seeing it doesn't help. Coding wise, writing, test automation wise, you can see 1,000 times, but when you sit down to write, nothing will happen. Okay, you're gonna feel like, oh, maybe I'll just go and take 5 minutes nap and come back and do this. And it's gonna happen again and again until the day of due date comes in, and then you go like, oh, you know what? I'll go ahead and just quit the group, right? Anybody that is new here, I will reach out to you guys personally, to make sure that you guys gonna continue or not. And also like, payment situation, anybody that already previously did the class, you don't have to worry about that. We'll talk about, afterward. Maybe when I place you on a job, then we can talk about the payment, but otherwise you don't have to. You can continue to do the class without any payment. But what I need is that serious, mindset. I want you to invest your time and be able to become technical by practicing rather than, thinking that, okay, last day I'm going to be able to do this. The moment we finish the class, you should be jumping in. You got 1 minute, you should be jumping in. You have 10 minutes before going to sleep, you should be jumping in. Let me see if I can build one simple test case, okay? And if that is the kind of addiction you don't have yet, I would say at least build the first 10, 15 test case. You will get that addiction and you'll be fine from there on. Just give yourself a chance to build 1 or 2 test cases and you're just going to be addicted to this. And then we're going to be all in the same boat, riding along. Today's class, everything is in here, okay? So not only that you have the video, but you can actually come here and practice this. As we going down the path, it's not easy, okay? But if you miss these 3 right here, then it's like no point for you to continue. These 3 classes, which is going to be Thursday, is going to be this one, running and debugging. Running and debugging is that when you have issues with your test, how do you fix it? And this is where I'm going to cover most of it. But like I said, these three just giving you the bare minimum to actually go and work. You can actually go and work if you can write some test cases, okay? But if you miss these three and you're not doing the homework, then there is no point. There's no point at all. So like I said, I don't want to be reaching out to you and say, hey, have to basically, close the group or whatever is the case, because I'm going to be locking the group at some point. So nobody can enter or get out. At least, those who want to get out, they can, but nobody can at least get in new. But just to make sure that we are in the same mindset here. I said it before, I'm sitting here spending, 6 hours every week with you. I spend additional 2 to 3 hours to understand what I'll be covering, what should be the next thing, right? I spend another 2 to 3 hours going over your homework, and I spend some time even to answer your questions and reach out to you personally. And then in return, if I don't get 2 or 3 hours per day to do your homework, I don't think it's fair, right? Like I said, this class is to make sure you become technical, to make sure you become a coder, and to make sure you become a QA engineer. Okay, I will continue this class even if there's one person. Okay, but I will not take somebody who misses the next, at least the next 3 homeworks, right? So the homework that we gave last one, today is going to be another. And then when we do debugging, will be another one, right? With that said, let's talk about the homework, which is going to be another 10 test cases. Okay, so this time today, I need you to, and some of you guys can actually use this website as long as you're choosing a different flow, right? It's not just one thing, you have insurance and other things also. Because this website doesn't give you a lot of trouble. It's a demo website, but I need you guys to understand how these, let's see, where is it? Grouping up your test and before and after, right? You want to use before and after those two. And then I want you to write at least 1 or 2 tests yourself, okay, manually. You can still use the Playwright inspector to find the locator, but I want you to try, it doesn't, if you can, you can't, but try writing it on your own. Now, I think you guys are confident on reading the test, right? You can actually read the test now, I believe, right? Because we went over this. I believe now you can read it. You see the first portion right here. Let me go into the other one. Okay. The first portion of this is just getting to the element, okay, by using the label. And the last one is action. That's it. Okay, that's how every single test is. You're locating the element first, and then you're doing something to mimic the user, right? In this case, you're filling out some information. Okay, so all these things are already in the website right here. All you have to do is maybe find locators. You can say locator. There's a locator page where it gives you this and gives you examples. If you click on get by role, right, you can see the example. And you can see get by label, you can see example, right? So the very listing that I would expect, if you're building the test using the recorder, you should be able to explain your test. Okay, so I'm going to be next class. Everybody gets 2 minutes to explain your test line by line, what happened, what's going on, what you're doing. Okay, and it doesn't have to be all 20 test cases for you. It's you can choose like the biggest test you have, and you just explain. Those who already did the 10, you can choose your favorite test, the one that you're really, really proud of, to explain. Okay, 2 minutes each in the very beginning of the class. And if you didn't do it, this is going to be a third strike there, because if you miss the first homework, second and third, and then obviously after the next class, we're gonna talk about it and basically get some of you guys closed up from this group, so that way you can do what you're busy with and we can continue what we are busy with, right? We'll be busy with. So like I said, again, the goal is to make you technical. You will not be technical if you don't try. I need at least 2 to 3, 4 hours per day. Okay. And if you're not spending it, if you're waiting for the last day and you think you will, you're a fast learner, you'll do the last day. I don't want that. That's not gonna stick in your head. It's not gonna last very long. There is a lot of smart people that I met over the last 13 years. First day I met them, oh wow, okay, this guy's gonna get a job within, very quickly. But that's the guy who didn't get a job. Everybody else did in the class. You know why? Because he's just not willing to take information. He knows what he knows. He's not following a lead. He's not really focusing. He has multiple things going on. Maybe he has a business. Maybe he wants to get a license for something. Whatever is the case, he has way too many things going on because he's pretty smart. Like he's wiser, and that's the problem too. So a lot of people that are like, okay, you know what? I'll just go through this. I want to see the end of it. I want to trust the process. Are the ones who actually make it. And even some of the people that are like, okay, they're pretty slow. They don't learn fast, but then they still go and take the effort to do the homework. Other one also makes it. But anybody that is wise, smart guy, quickly catch up, but then they do it last minute, do not make it. That's the reality of this field. Just keep in mind, you're going to be a QA engineer. Okay, if this was this easy, then anybody, nobody would work on, cabs. Nobody would drive cabs actually, because there's way too many people out there that have degrees and they're still driving cabs. Way too many people are like managers of like, McDonald's as well as Dunkin', and they're smart. They went to school, they got a degree, but they're still working. Why would they not do this? Why you? Because they can't go through that kind of stress that you're going through right now. So make sure, like I said, next class, you're gonna see your name dropping if I don't see homeworks. With that said, guys, if there's no question, if you have any question about homework, you can ask, otherwise we'll end the day.
I do have a question. Do you mind sharing the note that you have? All the locators?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll paste it. You know what? I'll paste it in the group. Okay, I'm gonna make this PDF and send it to you guys. Alrighty, because that was the last question. I will see you all next Tuesday.
Joe, one question. Is there like a list of websites you recommend for us to test on?
Yeah, so like I said, it's always good to find demo websites, but I would say, like e-commerce is much better because like, it's for public, anybody can use it. So like find a low-key website that sells stuff. That would be one. The other one would be like finding like calculators, like, mortgage, maybe like when you estimate how much monthly payments you're gonna pay. So mortgage, calculator would be another one where you can create so many test cases. So mortgage calculator could be like this, bank rate, for example. And we used to actually use this for automation. So not only that you can enter variation of information, like, this inputs right here, you can also verify information right here based on what you entered, right? So every time you change something here, it should also change the numbers right here on the monthly slide. So this is a very straightforward test cases without going through too many things, but it requires calculations, a little bit of calculations that you'll verify. That's one option. You can probably get a student loan calculator also, maybe this one for PMI and Texas calculator. And these are like, for general public. I wouldn't even go with this guy because it's gonna be, the next thing would be like, oh, give me your information, right? So go with something that doesn't require your real information. Then if you can look right here, okay, website for testing only, okay. 22 tasks, never mind, not this, sorry. 20 website to practice automation testing. There you go. All right, I'll give you guys this link, it's a simple, search. So the first one is source demo. You got the ultimate QA. So people build all that, as you can see, Cypress real world app. People build all this for testing purposes. There's a lot of QA engineers out there, right? So that's the link. You can choose any of these websites from this link for testing. Not the API. Whenever you see API, I will teach you guys API at the end. API is a completely different animal than UI testing. So just look for the UI and then just choose your website to automate. So it'll probably be easier to choose it from here than choosing something that you find interesting, because human reCAPTCHA thing, validation, and all this other will end up causing you more time when you can just focus on test itself, right? So just come in here. You can also look for other websites, there are 20 sites, tests work homepage, for example. There is another one, I don't know. That's yeah, I would say this is probably one of the best websites that I can recommend right now that gives you at least a list of options. Okay, and the other one would be here, but you can choose different product. There's multiple products, so go with whichever product you want. And by the way, hover needs to be hover here before you do anything. You click here. If you don't hover it, it will not work. Yes, I took maybe more than extra time, 37 minutes extra. So if you guys have any question, post it in the group. Otherwise, you're due 20 test cases. If you didn't do the homework, then if you're stuck, find somebody to help you maybe get started. But my recommendation is go back to the video and do it yourself. Then you'll learn something, right? And then you will not get stuck on the upcoming class. Okay, so you got another 4 days to get yourself going, and keep saving your tests, because we're going to push, as part of the learning of version control, we're going to push our code to GitHub, which is another tool. We're going to run our tests in CI, which is going to be running it remotely, not in your own computer. Those tests that are building right now is going to be used for those purposes. So just don't delete them after the homework is done. Just keep saving them, and we're going to continue build on top of that. All right, I will see you guys on next Tuesday. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.